Well, thank you everybody for being with me today. I hope your week has been really a good week and you're looking forward to being in church Sunday to worship the Lord and bring somebody with you. Just remember this Sunday in all three worship services, 8:30, 9:45, and 11 o'clock, we will be observing the Lord's Supper, always a meaningful time of worship. So that's this Sunday, February 9. All right, today we are in Proverbs chapter 4, and I've mentioned previously when we do devotions on the Proverbs that I love the book of Proverbs. I really do. In each chapter, filled with so much that we could talk about. We could spend, a long time just talking about this one chapter. But because we're not going to do that, the verses that jumped out at me, there's a thought that came to my mind, and I trust it was the Lord speaking to me. In chapter 4, verses 5 through 7. So let's look at that. He says, acquire wisdom, acquire understanding. Do not forget nor turn away from the words of my mouth. Do not forsake her, and she will guard you. Love her, wisdom, understanding. Love her, excuse me, and she will guard you. Love her, and she will watch over you. Verse 7, the beginning of wisdom is acquire wisdom. In other words, the beginning of being wise is to get some. Until you get some, you don't got none. Pretty simple. And with all your acquiring, okay, as you get more wisdom, as you do that, with all of your acquiring of wisdom, get understanding. Now, just a few things. Acquire. The idea of that Hebrew word is to obtain or to purchase. Wisdom does not come automatically by osmosis. Doesn't just rub off on you. If you don't want to gain wisdom, you won't. You're much more likely to obtain wisdom if you intentionally seek wisdom. You buy it. You put in the effort to gain wisdom. That's what he's saying. Be deliberate. And he says it will guard you and watch over you. I love that because what he's saying is it will make your life better, that it will keep you out of some problems. The absence of wisdom causes people to do really stupid, risky, dangerous stuff, to make bad choices. And they pay for it. Sometimes other people pay for it. Wisdom, what's the difference between wisdom and understanding? Some Bibles will translate the word here, understanding, as insight. What's the difference between wisdom and understanding or insight? Well, they're very similar. They're connected, but there are differences. Wisdom in the Bible is really understood as this knowledge that comes from God. Okay? It's God's perspective. It's God's wisdom, God's truth, especially as it relates to issues of morality and ethics or issues of living. There's an expertise, there's a skill you develop because God is training you and you're having the wisdom of God. Understanding is the idea, that Hebrew word is the idea of insight or having perception. It's looking deeper. It's looking beyond the surface. It's understanding is I take wisdom, I take God's truth, the knowledge God has given me, that's wisdom. And understanding means I take that truth of God and I know how to apply it to life. I look beneath the surface of the wisdom of the truth, and here's what it means for living. You ever said to someone they're so smart, they don't have any common sense? Wisdom without understanding. Maturity in Christ and the Christian life means you have book smarts and common sense, would be a way of saying it. That you know how to take the truth of God and you're perceptive enough to know what that means as you go through life, as you encounter the various issues and situations and circumstances of life. And it has very real consequences, very real results. For instance, in verse 11, he says, I have directed you in the way of wisdom. I have led you in the upright path. Now, the New American Standard, from which I'm reading, says upright path. The NIV says straight paths. King James Version, right paths. The Hebrew word here has the idea of moral integrity, that when we do what is morally right in the eyes of God, we're on the right path, we're on the upright path, we're on the straight path, not the crooked one, which is a picture of sin. And in our culture today in America, we have a lot of really intelligent, smart people who reject the wisdom of God, and therefore their insight, their understanding, their perception of certain behaviors and sins is distorted, is twisted, misguided, causing them to justify what God says is sin. So if you reject the wisdom of God, then your perception of situations is not going to be godly very often. And that's what you see happening in our culture today, especially in the areas of sexual ethics and morality. You reject the truth of God, you reject the wisdom of God. So I perceive things in a way that's different than God says. That's how it plays out in life. And so sex, promiscuity, sexual, sex is almost an idol that people worship in today's culture. And so a lot of young people now, very promiscuous. It's just sex. You hear people say, it's just sex. But the wisdom of God says, no, it's not just sex. It is a whole lot more than that. And because the perception is lacking, then the behavior is immoral, and there's a lot of consequences to that. There's a whole lot of painful consequences to that in the long run. Because sin ultimately always, ultimately hurts and ruins and kills. So wisdom, it starts with you getting wisdom, and the place you get it is from God. James in the New Testament said, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives it generously and then doesn't criticize you for asking for it because you didn't have it. So get the wisdom of God and then learn how to apply it to your life, and your life will be so much better. Hey, I'll see you Sunday in church. Looking forward to being with you, worshiping, preaching, fellowshipping. And then Monday, as we jump back in the book of Genesis, and we will be in chapter 21. God bless you, everybody. Have a beautiful weekend.